The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
All right. Joining us now is Nick Day, also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. So what do we know so far on this arrest of Sam Bankman-Fried?
Morning. Yeah. So Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested last night in his home in the Bahamas. The Royal Bahamas Police Force said in a press statement that they would bring him before a court, as you said today, and the U.S. is expected to request his extradition. U.S. prosecutors announced last night that they had filed a sealed indictment. We're expecting that to be unsealed today, where he is likely to be charged with wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy tied to some of these charges. He was also sued by the SEC this morning, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, on similar securities fraud charges. Basically, just getting hit by a lot right now. It's going to be a pretty interesting case. There's a lot of allegations as to, wrongdoing, mismanagement of funds, not taking into account best practices, things like that.
He's also being hit by, or appearing before the magistrate court in the Bahamas right now. What do we expect out of that?
Yeah, I think that's probably just going to be more of a, here's why you've been arrested kind of situation. The Bahamas so far has not announced any specific charges against him, but they are conducting their own investigation, both criminal and civil, into Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. So I imagine they're going to have their own charges. They're going to want to unveil those. It's unclear to me whether or not they're at a position yet where they're able to, or they're ready to, rather.
So, Nick, this was a coordination between the Bahamian government and the United States. It seems that it happened right before he was set to testify before Congress. Do we know if that was on purpose, that the arrest happened before he went before Congress, or is it potentially that they just botched it? Or what do we know about the timing?
Honestly, I can't imagine that the prosecutors with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York were planning around his House congressional testimony. It does seem like a very, odd coincidence. And in a statement, Representative Maxine Waters, who chairs the committee, said she was surprised at the timing of the indictment, saying that the public should be able to hear from Sam Bankman-Fried. It does. I don't know. It's a very interesting timing, but I don't really buy into any of the conspiracy theories that the U.S. DOJ arrested him specifically to protect him from having to testify before Congress.
Mm-hmm. It could just be that the Bahamian government is just as disorganized as FTX or government officials, not just the Bahamian government, but government in general.
Sorry, just to be clear, this was the U.S. DOJ that requested the arrest.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. We also have a statement from the Bahamian Prime Minister saying the Bahamas and the United States have a shared interest in holding accountable all individuals associated with FTX who may have betrayed the public trust and broken the law. While the United States is pursuing criminal charges against SBF individually, the Bahamas will continue its own regulatory and criminal investigations into the collapse of FTX with the continued cooperation of its law enforcement and regulatory partners in the United States and elsewhere. I wonder what you can say about how the Bahamian and U.S. Authorities are working together and how these investigations are parallel or crisscross.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of overlap. FTX had, a central group of people who were leading it. And I imagine that both the Bahamian and U.S. governments, as well as governments around the world, are going to be looking into the same set of individuals because, again, this was a pretty global entity. It is worth noting that this is going to be separate from the bankruptcy proceedings where things are a little bit more tense. Right now, we're hearing, we're seeing in court filings that the liquidators in the Bahamas, which is a similar process to the U.S. bankruptcy process, the liquidators are kind of complaining that they've been locked out of some of the access, some of their investigations, some of their ability to do their jobs because of the U.S. bankruptcy case. So there is an interesting bit of jurisdictional tension going on in the bankruptcy case. But as far as the civil and criminal investigations go, so far they seem to be, running pretty well, with each other. The Bahamas is willing to honor an extradition request from the U.S. pursuant to, a treaty signed decades ago. So far there doesn't seem to be any real issues there. Although I imagine once they start getting to a point of trials and hearings and sentencing, then we might see there'll be an interesting question as to where exactly he's going to be going on trial and where he might get sentenced to, etc.